Welcome to Real Human Design Stories, where guests share their powerful personal stories of transformation through human design. I'm Chatty Bochonko, an intuitive human design mentor and guide to radical self-trust. Join us as we explore how your human design experiment can truly change your life. Hi there. Welcome to Real Human Design Stories. Today, you've got me solo because I am going to talk a little bit about radical self-trust, one of my favorite subjects, right? So I'm recording this January 2nd of 2025. Hard to remember to say that. And so, of course, I've been deep in this reflection time of 2024. And the Human Design New Year doesn't start until January 21st. But this is a really great time to really put the energy into thinking about what's transpired in this last year. It's an energy of wrapping things up. So that's what I'm really going to focus on in this. So I really wanted to talk about how powerful my journey of radical self-trust has been for me in this past year. And it started with last year at this time, I did what I've been doing for about 5 years now, which is to choose a word to kind of focus and anchor the year. And I will say this one has definitely blown all the others away. And some of the years, honestly, I forgot what it was by February. But this year that we're just wrapping up, or that we just wrapped up, was very different. I chose the word trust, which very quickly morphed into radical self-trust. And a lot of that began with this podcast journey. So this podcast is not even a year old as far as being an actual podcast. And it was at this time last year that I had made the decision to take the episodes that I had produced and put on my YouTube channel as just interviews and have them all produced and put up as a podcast, and then continue going forward with that format. And that was a financial investment that at the time felt scary. There was this voice in my head that said, who do you think you are? You're going to hire someone? Everybody does their own podcast. But I knew I didn't have the energy, the time for that. And so I kept just not getting it done. And I'd get more and more of these episodes piling up because I just didn't have the energy to do it. And I didn't want to leave the other ones behind. So I made the decision to hire Mark. Is fabulous. And he is the one who takes these videos and puts them in the format and puts it all up for me so I don't have to mess with any of that. And so that might sound like a simple thing, but it was a really hard decision because I don't know about you, but like investing in myself felt scary. And, this podcast doesn't pay me something. I do it because I love doing it. So to spend money on that felt scary. So that was my first example. I'm going to give you 3 examples. And this one is not quite done yet because there were times where I still questioned, why am I doing this? And then I realized what I was really getting from it, the amazing people that I was talking to that I would normally never have the opportunity to sit and talk to Chatty Parkin, for example, not just once, but twice for an hour or more, is not something you just get to do, right? I mean, maybe you do, but I don't, not in my world. I did get to talk to him a little bit in Santa Fe, too, because I had been invited on the podcast to go to Santa Fe. So lots of wonderful things have come through this podcast journey, not just the conversations, but relationships that have come from it. And it's been a really huge part of my personal expansion for the year. So I really am very happy that I leaned in, and somehow I coined the term radical self-trust early on. And it stuck. And I just knew it was something that I wanted to make kind of a mantra. What would it mean to radically self-trust, radically trust myself? And that has been something I've had to ask myself over and over. And a lot of it is that little knowing that comes up when you just feel something. You know something is what you should do, but sometimes you feel like, well, that's silly, or that's not logical, or whatever. But you kind of still know it, and so you just trust it. So the second example I wanted to share was when I went to conference, the Human Design Conference in Colorado Springs. This was, I think, my 4th year that I went. And so when I got the email that said, oh, last chance for early bird pricing, I went to the website and I actually even clicked on it. And then as soon as I was there, I just knew, no, don't do this, because if you're going to go this year, it's going to be as a speaker. And it was kind of like a non-attachment sort of feeling. And it wasn't an ultimatum kind of thing, like, well, you're not going to go unless they invite you. But it was really this thing of, it's your time. And if it's not your time to speak, then you don't need this ticket. Either way. So I didn't buy the ticket. And instead, a week after that, an invitation came in for people to apply for speaking. And it was kind of ironic because I thought, oh, well, here you go. You just thought this, and here's the email. But then right away I was like, no, that doesn't feel right. This just is a generic email that went out to everybody, and I don't feel recognition in this. So I'm going to wait. Besides, I don't really know what I would talk about. And then because I had that thought, I thought, well, yeah, you would probably talk about your podcast and this whole process and the idea of radical self-trust. So it started me thinking about what I would talk about. And then the whole thing happened with, so then somebody asked me, are you applying to speak at conference? Because they were sending in their thing. And I said, well, I don't know if I don't, basically what I just told you. And they were like, oh, well, was that an invitation? Because I just asked you if you're going. And I was like, no, that doesn't feel like recognition from the conference, right? And then next thing you know, I found out that the person running the conference had said to the person who does my podcast, who they are affiliated, oh, ask Kathy if she's going to apply, invite her to apply to speak. So I did. And I didn't know what to talk about because I didn't have clarity on my topic. But I basically just said, it'll be great, and it'll be about radical self-trust, and I'm going to trust that the idea is going to come in as it needs to. So as I went on with the next, 6 months or whatever that was, I kept thinking, got to write your presentation, got to map it out, and I kept feeling like I should do something, but I didn't have anything really coming through. And it was a really interesting process to watch myself, to observe myself, literally sit down and make some pretty things or whatever, but still feel like, it's not there. And there was a point in my life where that would have freaked me out. It would have really stressed me out that I was literally a month before conference and I still didn't really have my presentation. I mean, I had some ideas, but they felt boring. They felt like good information, but the last thing I wanted to do was stand up there and lecture a bunch of people about radical self-trust when, they were all human design people. They were going to be on their own journey. I didn't want to feel like I was trying to teach them. So I went through a whole process, and that turned into this beautiful presentation where I talked about radical self-trust and what it means. So what it means to me is it's the ability to sit with that uncertainty, because you know that your innate wisdom will guide you to the next right step and when the timing's right. So that's what I did. I didn't know what to write, so I sat with that. And I just knew that whatever it was going to be, it was going to be what it was going to be. So even to the point where if I'd had to show up and create on the spot, I would know that that's what I was. I mean, hey, what better example of radical self-trust, right? So I didn't really want to do that, but I was aware that it was going to be what it was supposed to be. So that was a really powerful experience for me, because I know that I am supported by the universe and that everything's happening for my greatest expansion, even when it sucks in the moment, right? That's, if you've heard me talk much, you probably heard me say that. And this was really a good example of that. So my question to you is, where in your life have you leaned into radical self-trust? What decisions would you have made differently if you truly trusted yourself in that moment? And by leaning into this feeling in my podcast, or not my podcast, my conference presentation creation, I allowed it to really kind of morph organically in the process to where one day I was in a really creative, silly mood. And I realized that I wanted to talk about embracing the parts of ourselves that we left behind, right? And so I talked about how I used to be teased by I'm the youngest of 9 kids, and how I used to get teased by my siblings or just kids in general. No tragic life of mine or story, just, this is what my reality was. And they called me Chatty Cathy because I like to talk. And honestly, it's in my design, right? I have the channel 1-8, the channel of contribution, which is all about being your own contribution, but it's a channel that processes verbally big time. So I didn't even care if people were listening. I would just be that little kid sitting over there talking to my doll, talking to the shadow. I just talked. And so I was Chatty Cathy. So I talked about how I have taken back that moniker. You guys probably know that I often introduce myself as Chatty Cathy because it's an easy way to remember me, because people remember that I am chatty. So I talked about that. I also talked about my love of fashion and how I always have liked to dance as a kid. I liked to dance, but I never was somebody who was trained to dance or did any kind of dancing where it was by anybody else's rules. I just like to move to the music. I like to dress my own way. I like to move to the music. And a lot of those things caused me to get a lot of pushback. And I was told I was too much. Calm down, settle down, talk too much, you dress too crazy. This is not a place for dancing, that sort of thing. So I told this whole story of that, and I ended it with this empowered new statement that I presented in the form of a disco song that I called Chatty Cathy in the Groove. And a little bit later, I'm going to play it for you, and you can dance if you want to. We all did at the end of conference. That was a really hard thing for me. I shouldn't say hard, because it really wasn't. It would have been hard in the past. It was a little bit, just a tiny bit scary to think I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to play this song and I'm going to dance in front of a bunch of people. And they might just look at me like I'm crazy. And there was this moment where I had to have the radical self-trust that they're either going to dance or they're going to not dance. And none of it has anything to do with my worth or my correctness. This is what I'm going to do. And I did. And it was really fun. And so that was my second story, which I kind of drew out into a lot of other nuances. So hopefully you'll stick around for the third story, which kind of started around the same time as conference, which was, well, actually it started like all stories when you're born, right? Everything is always an evolving part of your whole story. But the third part of the radical self-trust journey for me for this year was really learning to lean into a part of myself that I kind of tucked away a little bit, and that is my love for fashion. And I remember the first human design conference that I went to in 2021, I think it was. Yeah. So, and Lisa Stark said something to me about how excited I was when I was talking to her about a story back in the days when I used to work in retail fashion and helping people to feel better about themselves. And so that started a conversation. I believe she's the one who initiated the conversation and said, well, is there a way you can do something with human design and this love of fashion that you have? And I really, at the time, didn't know what that looked like. And what I realized is that there's no human design formula that says if you have this channel, you should have this kind of a style or that sort of thing. And at that point, I was trying to be very in my head about how can I tie the two together. But this year of radical self-trust has told me and shown me that what human design can really help us to do is to know and trust ourselves enough and our decision-making process to show up authentically as who we are, right? So what that means is I decided that there is a disconnect for a lot of people, right? A lot of people who know who they are fully on the inside are still a little overwhelmed with what to do with the outside of themselves. And so I would never deem to tell them how they're supposed to dress. But I've realized I have a gift for guiding them in knowing how they want to dress. And now I have developed a program that, for lack of a better term, program sounds like conditioning. I don't mean that. But I've developed a system, because we're here to master systems, to help you uncover where you've been conditioned away from expressing yourself physically the way you want to show up in the world. And as we are moving into this age of individualism, right, this shift with human design, it's really important that we are authentically expressing ourselves in every sense of the word. Now, my cognition in human design is outer visions. So visuals have always been very important to me. And, some people are more auditory. They're more, they're more about the energy feelings or whatever. But there is something that comes about in the expression of a person when they truly embrace who they are. And so I've created this new, I'm going to call it my signature offer. And it's going to start with a 5-day challenge. And it started out, I was going to offer this right after conference. I knew I wanted to do this. And I put something out there at that point that I was going to do this. And I quickly realized that I really wasn't ready to do it in a way that was going to give it the honor that it was. And I also, at that point, was only offering it as a paid offer. Now what I'm offering is a free 5-day challenge. And there will be ways you can work with me more, but this free 5-day challenge for a lot of people will be all they need to really get them going to start to do these things on their own. And that feels really good to me. So that's going to start with the new year, the Human Design New Year, January 21st. And it's going to be really about unpacking the places where you were told you were too much, the places where you were told you were not enough, and how you can incorporate this into a simple process where you're going to walk away at the end with 3 words that are going to really help you personally identify what makes something feel good to you as far as your wardrobe, your outfit. And you might be somebody who's very happy with wearing the same thing all the time, and that's fine. This is not about putting you in a position where you have to go out and buy a whole bunch of things. If anything, this is going to probably make you buy less, because you're going to realize that you've been buying things trying to create something that you don't really know what you're trying to create. So you're going to not need to buy all those things, because you're going to realize that you have the things in your wardrobe already. You're just not putting them together in the ways that really fit for you. And I'm really excited about that. So that's another place where I've really leaned into the radical self-trust. And I'm excited to bring that to you. And I'm going to have links in the show notes of how you can sign up, or you can just go to kathybochonko.com and there'll be information there. And if you're seeing this in the future, don't worry, I'm sure there's another round coming. So just check my website or feel free to comment, and I'll let you know when the next one's coming up. So that all being said, this has been a big year for me. The radical self-trust journey has not always been sunshine and roses. There have been some difficult moments, right? And there still continue to be times where I have really, realized that trust means being okay with uncertainty. And, there's this idea that, the unknown is scary, right? But it's also exciting. And so I'm really excited to see what happens for 2025. And I have this thing I'm going to back up. So I've been doing a lot of writing, and I have a blog on my website. And every time the transits change, I have been writing about the transits. So that's been really great. But I also wrote a blog post just recently about choosing my word for 2025. And in that post, I explained to you how I used ChatGPT to help me. I did not let it pick my word. Don't get me wrong. Don't ever let it make decisions for you. But I used prompts to help it to guide me through some contemplations to decide what my word was. So I now have full clarity that my word is simplify. And as I've leaned into this huge, huge year of radical self-trust, it's clear that there's a lot of things in my life that don't need to be here. Some of them are easy to get rid of. Others, not so much. I've lived in this same house for 22 years, and simplifying that is not necessarily a quick one-day project, right? I've got a lot of things that probably don't need to be here because they're not really part of what I want to do going forward. So being gentle with myself about it, but taking active steps to move forward, to simplify life, simplifying my business structure, right? I've spent a lot of time creating some downloadable free and paid reports you can do, because I love doing readings, but I don't want to spend my time telling you really basic stuff that you could get through a simple free report, and then we can go deeper. Even some of the really deep, beautiful stuff that we get into, that it's sometimes good for you to be able to get that in something you can read and digest over time. So I have various levels of reports, and I created something I've called Your Ultimate Human Design Guide for Radical Self-Trust. And it has, right now, there's 3 available components. The 4th one I'm hoping will be done soon, but I'm trusting that it's going to be done when it's done, right? Because everything good takes time. Usually, I shouldn't say that. Some good things happen in an instant, right? But The first one is an introduction offer for you to get to know the basics of your chart. The second one is for people who have been experimenting for a little while and they know very well what their strategy and authority is, but they don't really trust it. They don't use it. They still get in their head and ignore their authority often. So this is a guide to help you really deepen that sense of connection and that sense of self-trust. And it has all kinds of contemplations and questions for you to look at all that with and really understand more of the nuances of both your energy type and the strategy that goes with it and your specific authority. So, and then the third one I'm really proud of, and this is a deep dive into understanding your energy centers. And a year ago, I did a course that took 10 weeks of calls. We had 10 calls to go over the 9 energy centers. And we really looked at things in a deep way and how our energy centers were configured and how that works with other people. And so what I did was I took all the notes of that and then I did it in a way that you can get it, all that information based on your chart specifics. And it's really an in-depth, intensive study of your energy centers and how they work with other people. So, although my word is simplify, it's also my nature to go really deep. So, it's important for me to simplify the things that are not important so that I can go deep where I am meant to go deep or where I desire to go deep. And what that means is I got to stop doing things that don't light me up. And I am also spending as much time as possible in my zone of genius. So where are you not spending your time in your zone of genius? Because all those other places you're spending it are keeping you out of that zone. I don't know if you've heard that concept. There's a book called The Big Leap, and then a follow-up to it called The Genius Zone or The Zone of Genius. I forget which, but they're both by Gay Hendricks. And the idea is if you spend too much time in your zone of competence, just do something because you can, or zone of excellence, do something because you're good at it, pretty good at it, right? That's less time for you to spend in that place where you have this gift, this zone of genius. And so by simplifying my year in 2025, I'm hoping to spend as much of my time with you in my zone of genius, which is about understanding how your energy shows up in relationship, where you can find the gifts in that, how you show up in your body, in your dressing, where you're getting in your own way, and really helping you to shine your light in 2025 in a way that just really brings you more joy, right? Because that's what we're all here for, bringing more joy to the world. And I want to thank all of you so much. This podcast has been such a blessing in my life. And I'm so excited. You know, I got my things, the wrapped, Spotify does a wrapped up thing. And we've been in 32 countries, and we have been a top 10% video podcast on Spotify. Those are things that I'm super grateful for all of you for. And all the likes and shares and comments are very much appreciated. And I just want to help you to continue to shine your light in whatever way that I can. And I'm going to end this with my by sharing my little video I did, which is my disco song that I made. And I want to just end with one little line from the disco song, which is, how can they love you if they don't see your soul? If they don't love your sparkle, they don't know your heart. So those are two things that really motivate me going forward, is how can I help you to show your sparkle and show your light? So when you show up as your true self, you invite the world to see and honor you. And with that being said, peace out and I hope you enjoy Chatty Cathy's In the Groove.
Cathy used to hide away, dim a light so low. Talk too much, she laughed too wild, scared her own blow. Outlandish outfits, she dressed in current flair, but they clone her to shrink down, said she was too much to bear. Now she's shining, Cathy's in the groove. No more hiding, let the rhythm make you move. She's a miracle, made of magic light. Hundreds of pieces put together so right. Shine your light, shine bright. Through with all your might, Cathy's dancing through the night. Dancing wild, arms up wide, spinning through the crowd. They used to say she was too much, but look at her now. Her laughter rings out, her voice like a song. Cathy's ruling in her power where she's always belonged. Now she's shining, Cathy's in the groove. No more hiding, let the rhythm make move. She's a miracle, made of magic light. Hundreds of pieces put together so right. Shine your light, shine it bright. Through with all your might, Cathy's dancing through the night.
Cathy learned the secret, it's not about less. It's about being fully to you. Don't second guess.
If they don't love your focus, they don't know your heart. Trust yourself, baby, that's where it's done. Now she's shining, Cathy's in the groove. No more hiding, let the rhythm make you move. She's a miracle, made of magic light. Hundreds of pieces put together so right. Shine your light, shine bright. Shine your light, shine bright. Run with all your might. Cathy's dance through the night.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of Real Human Design Stories. I hope these stories help you see how human design can reframe not only your own story, but also the stories you tell yourself about your relationships. If you're ready to tell a more empowered story about who you came here to be, I invite you to explore ways to work with me directly at kathybochonko.com. Supporting this podcast is easy. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star rating, like, comment, and share with your friends. This helps the podcast grow the most. You can also become a contributing sponsor for as little as 99 cents a month. Details are available at realhumandesignstories.com. Thanks again for being here. Real Human Design Stories is created and hosted by me, Cathy Bochonko, and produced by Number 3 Productions. Peace out, everybody.